Hello and welcome. We are starting our new Facebook Live sessions, and this is our second Facebook Live where we talk about elevating your resume and LinkedIn language for maximum impact with Heidi Ravis, our in house resume expert. Heidi Ravis has been working with relaunchers, and she's been a career counselor for 30 years. And we are so glad she could join us. Heidi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you. Hi, relaunchers. It's nice to be here with you. I've been a career counselor, as Rachna said, for over 30 years. I've worked with all different populations. But I really enjoy working with relaunchers, helping them to figure out their direction and to tell their stories. So I'm excited to be here with you today to answer questions and share information.
Thank you. Thank you, Heidi. Uh, this is a very common topic. Last week we had the first Facebook Live where we talked about conference resources and really about how to use the platform and where to find what and the hows and whats of it. But I feel from now on, from today onwards, we are getting into the real nuances of relaunching and what it takes. Uh,
Mhm.
and that's why we wanted to start off with this because creating a perfect resume for your relaunch, it's a very loaded topic, right? People have all kinds of apprehensions that I've taken a career break. How will it be taken? How do I show my career break? Should I call out my career break? And there is just so many questions. So let's start off and let's dive in because we have 30 to 35 minutes and we want to keep
Mhm.
these Facebook lives short.
Right.
So let's start off with how do relaunchers talk about uh, their achievements and experiences. What have I been doing during my break? How do they answer this question?
Often people have a lack of confidence because of that. They feel like, well, I've been out of the game for a while. How do I convince somebody that I wasn't just sitting around on the couch, watching game shows all day or something like that? I think, and people will say to me, well, what did I really do? I haven't worked in my field. But when you scratch the surface, when I start to ask questions about, okay, well, what were you doing? Oh, I was a volunteer at my kid's school. Okay, well, tell me about that volunteer work. And often the responsibilities are so impressive. People who have run events or people who have initiated programs or um, been organizers of things. So there are so many different roles, even if you think, oh, well, I was just a school volunteer, the role that you played could be very significant and could really add to your skill set. Um, I think lately I've been working with a lot of people with very long career breaks, and often they involve family caretaking responsibilities. And I've spoken to people who have done incredible work coordinating care for children with special needs or for elderly parents. They've moved all around the country and have had to manage multiple moves. So it's really about pulling out those skills that you used and thinking about how they connect with what you might want to do next and how they augment what you have from the work that you did before.
Hmm. The word augment,
Mhm,
that is such an important word, right?
mhm,
Because yes, you were working before and you took a pause, and now you want to go back. So that is
mhm.
the common thread, right?
Right.
We talk about something about being frozen in time, right? We have had
Mhm,
relaunchers over and over come to us and tell us that uh, their contacts, or they remembered us from that time. So that is an
Mhm.
advantage, that
Mhm.
they remember you from that time. So
Right.
put that to some use, right?
Right.
You mentioned skills, so that is something that we keep talking about, like transferable skills.
Right.
How do relaunchers really capitalize on that? Like, how do they really double down on that? I did earn some transferable skills
Mhm.
uh, during my break.
I think trying to think about the stories and the accomplishments
Hmm.
and putting it in context is really important. So rather than just saying, "Oh, I organized things," think about what you organized.
Hmm.
So if you were able to coordinate very complex services
Hmm.
for your child or for your elderly parent, or if you had major caretaking responsibilities that involved really complex logistics, then think about it that way, not just coordinated, but think about coordinated complex logistics to to arrange care with multiple providers for elderly relative. So think about what you did, not just use a word, but think about how that played out, how what you actually did. Sometimes writing it down, thinking about, okay, well, what did it look like? How did I gain that skill? If you took classes, earned certifications, you want to accentuate that. Earned certification in data analysis from, such and such organization or institute. So, not just using the words, but illustrating them with a story or with an achievement. And people talk about quantification,
Hmm.
and that's important. If you can quantify, if you can say that you know, if you have metrics that go along with your accomplishments, great. But even if you don't, think about outcomes. Think about, because I did this, there was this outcome, or this, it led to these improvements. So really try as best you can to use examples and to think about cause and effect.
Hmm. And we've been talking about relaunchers and getting back from a gap. the the bigger question for some people also is, how do I address the gap in my resume? Should I call it out? Should I not call it out? And because we've seen, I'm sure you've also seen all sorts, right? Some of them
Mhm.
do address it, some of them don't. um, because some, and this is a follow-up question, because some relaunchers have also come up and said that, what if I did not do anything? Like, I was not
Mhm.
a PTA volunteer, I was not part of a local community, or the strategic volunteering that we talk about.
Mhm.
Then what?
Then you could call it a family sabbatical.
Hmm.
Anything that, and think about, because you might not think that you did anything substantive, but when you start to, even writing down, well, what did I do with my time? Um, Sometimes there is more there than you think there is. Even, I gave the example of moves before. A move can be a huge project. And so even if it doesn't feel like you're using project management skills, you probably are.
Hmm.
So, thinking about the kinds of things that you did, um, sometimes people don't want to call attention to it. I know that if they're going through iRelaunch, if they're applying for one of the iRelaunch related programs, the employers want to know. So you do need to account for it in some way. But sometimes people choose not to, or they do one version that has the break
Hmm.
and one that doesn't. So I try to work with people on, well, okay, were you doing if you had a consulting business, or if you were working part-time, or if you were doing volunteer work, would you like to use that to account for the time? If you don't want to use the career break, do you want to use both? So and certainly if it's a large gap, you do need to account for it. I think not to not to gloss over the challenges of the COVID period, but I do think that breaks
Mhm.
and time away from the workplace became a little bit more normalized because of that. So some people weren't able to work. Some people had their children home, doing online school, and couldn't work because somebody had to be home physically to do that. Sometimes people did some major soul searching. I've worked with a lot of people who said, you know what, I was home. I really thought about the work that I had been doing, and I said, life's too short to do something I don't like or that's not meaningful. So I do think that that COVID, that imposed break or that imposed time of self-examination did kind of maybe change employers' expectations a little bit, or employers' feelings about somebody having a gap. Maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part, but I do think that it's more normalized and it's less of a stigma because so many people were forced to take breaks during that time.
Yeah, that is such an important point. And I have a question to follow up. But you talked
Mhm,
about project management.
mhm.
I spoke to this relauncher once who really did exactly this. She, excuse me, she flipped her house. Like, she was involved in the renovation of her house, each detail about right from getting the permit from the city to to the end of it, to getting the entire move done, to getting her house of maybe around 500 to 600 square feet of addition and renovation and everything done.
Wow.
And she mentioned
Okay.
that. She
That's a
mentioned
lot,
part of,
right?
yeah, because it is all project management. You're managing so
Absolutely.
many parties, and you're managing your own family and your own time, and you're doing everything by your own. So
Yes.
she mentioned all of that, and it was such a wonderful uh, you know way of expressing what she did it. And she did relaunch, and she talked so confidently about what she did. And that's so right, and resonates with so many people, Heidi, that sit down and take a blank sheet of paper and just write. Like, sometimes we are so in the moment that we do not quantify our whatever we are doing. So
Yes.
that's exactly what she did. She wrote her story, and then of course she
Mhm,
sized it and quantified it and
mhm.
bullet
Sure.
made it pretty and whatever. But
Mhm.
it was such an empowering moment for her to realize that she had done so much, right?
Yes.
She
Yes.
was not getting paid. She was, of course, not part of the paid workforce. So
Mhm,
she was not getting, yeah, she was not getting paid,
mhm,
but she had done so much. And
mhm.
the her prospective employer could see that. So
That's great.
yeah, that is a great point, really.
Yeah,
um,
what a wonderful story too. I think so much of doing, not just writing your resume, but entering the job search is storytelling.
mm,
Not in, making things up. I don't mean it in that way, but finding the through line, figuring out, because your career progression makes sense to you, right? So when you think about, okay, I did this and then that led to that, and then I took a break to have my kids, and then that made me think about this. So thinking about what the story is and what the themes are. So often, as a result of raising kids, or doing whatever you did during that break, you learn a lot about yourself and your values. And so sometimes that leads people to want to make a change, or it leads people to say, I want to take what I did before, but I don't want to do the exact same thing, because what I've learned during this time has shown me that I really want this to be a component in what I do, or I really need the flexibility. I can't work, 60-hour work weeks anymore because the life work balance is so important to me. So thinking about what the story is, what the theme is, and what holds it together can be really helpful, because you're telling the story that nobody else but you can tell. You don't want your resume just to be a generic listing of jobs. You want it to be your story. It's an abridged version. It has to be, it can't be every detail, but if you can tell a story in a way that's compelling and helps a potential employer to see what your value is, not just the value of the list of jobs on the paper, but how it shaped you and how it shaped your direction, then it's going to be much more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Also, uh, when there are resumes and after a break, there is also the section of people who wants to be in the know. They want to know about what is going on in the current industry and want to
Mhm,
upskill, right?
mhm.
So they take up some courses or certifications or all of that. So, what is your advice on that, and how should they take that? How should they address that?
You mean how should they choose, or how
Who
should
should they
they
choose?
list it?
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is one place where networking and LinkedIn can be really, really helpful.
Mm,
So, I often advise people to do some research on LinkedIn to find people who are in roles that interest them, or who are working in companies that they're interested in, because you can get a lot of clues
mm,
from from that information. So you can, if you are interested in working as, I don't know, a data analyst at Google, okay? So looking up Google itself, looking up the the profiles of people who are in those roles at Google, or at, I'm just using it as an example, and
sure.
seeing what kinds of skills and certifications they have, or looking at a bunch of job descriptions or job postings for those roles, and seeing what the commonalities are. Do all those postings seem to ask for a particular skill or a particular software? Maybe that can help you to decide. If they all are saying you need this, we're looking for somebody with this skill, then that might be what you want to target to get certification, rather than just guessing or saying, oh, I have to get 10 different certifications.
Yeah.
Look to see which are the ones that are most relevant in the roles that you're interested in, and seek those out. And there are a lot of free and low cost resources for finding trainings. LinkedIn Learning has a ton of trainings, and even if you don't join premium as permanently, you can do a 1 month free trial
Right.
and see if there are things that you can do within that 1 month free trial period. You can look for Coursera courses where you can where you can either earn the certification or even just take a class on an auditing basis, so that you're learning the skill, but you don't necessarily have to pay the fee,
Right.
to matriculate in the class. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a really expensive, time consuming process. You can do the research. You can also talk to people who are in those fields. If you have people in your network who maybe you used to work with who have continued in the field when you've taken a break,
Mm,
talking to them and saying, what are some of the useful certifications that that are helpful in this industry, or are there particular kinds of software that you use all the time that are essential in your job?
Right.
So really, trying to pinpoint what things are most useful rather than just thinking, oh, I have to, then getting overwhelmed and thinking you have to spend a lot
Yes.
of time and money getting everything.
Yes, I was getting to that because it is a good thing that there's a problem of plenty nowadays, right? We have access to so many things, and
Right.
there are just so many resources, and this is now becoming just especially with a relauncher who is coming out of a break, wants to go back, has that willpower, but
Mhm.
also is a little intimidated by oh, I haven't worked, that thing is
Mhm.
there. Even if you get past that, and then they're like, okay, now I want to get into, yeah, because data analysis and anything with
Mhm.
data is such a common thing now,
Right.
everybody wants to do that. But let's say they want to get into that, and then they see so many resources. So
Right.
how to choose, how to have that laser focus, and not just do like a check mark, like just a laundry list of courses and dump it on your resume that, okay, I'm ready.
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah, and I think sometimes people will do that. They'll say, "Oh, if I just take more classes, then I can load up my resume and my LinkedIn profile with all these courses, and that'll make a difference." I think, first of all, it does make a difference to potential employers that you've tried to stay current in your field, or that if you're looking to transition into a new field, that you pay attention. So sometimes joining a professional association can be a good way to do that. Or if there's a networking group or a LinkedIn group that's focused on that industry, that can help you to get a sense. And those are good places to ask questions about, okay, well, if
right.
I'm only going to do one certification, what should it be? So finding out from colleagues, from again, you can look on in people's LinkedIn profiles, things like that, to get an idea of what the most important skills are, and just making that effort to keep up in your industry, showing that you're aware of the trends, reading industry publications, subscribing to industry newsletters, things like that will show a potential employer that you haven't, been hiding under a rock for for 5 years or whatever, that you really have tried to keep up to date
Yeah.
with developments in the industry.
Yeah, because and many relaunchers have said this over and over again, that what worked for them when they were on this journey was, one, taking baby steps, right? Taking small steps
Yeah,
and just getting it together, that, okay, this is what I want to do and this is what will take me there, right? And
absolutely.
maybe there is a time that you are overwhelmed, be overwhelmed, but then also from confusion there is clarity too,
Mhm.
right? You go
Yes.
from confusion to clarity. So you take that. And then second is, we do have a problem of plenty and there are a lot of resources. So there is some, so you need to up your competence.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
we always talk about being a subject matter expert.
Mhm.
And I think what you are saying and what you have also seen in your experience is, yes, it should not look that you're hiding under a rock, right? You
Mhm.
can take a break, but you have to prove, and you have to at least be at that level where you can talk about whatever is going on in your industry. And
Mhm.
so it could start from, like, it could start from confusion, but it has to keep going to clarity, right?
Yes. And I liked what you said about baby steps, because if you just say, okay, my goal is to find a job, well, that's a really big goal. And it's very, it
Yes.
encompasses so much that, of course, if you just look at it as, okay, my goal is to find a job, you're, you're going to get overwhelmed probably. So breaking it down into those little steps is so important, and being able to say, okay, here's my goal for today. Here's, to take the big goals, break them down into smaller goals, and then think about specific tasks that you can do.
Yes.
So even working on your resume, rather than just saying, okay, I'm going to write my resume today, maybe sit down and say, okay, well, first, I'm going to think about how I want to talk about my break, my career break. Here are the things that I did, and just, not worry about making it perfect, but thinking about, okay, what can I do today to help me to reach that goal? And then tomorrow, what can I do? Once I've done this one small manageable thing, what can I do tomorrow? So not feeling like you've got to do it all at once and be perfect, but think
Yeah,
about what pieces you can accomplish that are manageable for you. And they might feel
absolutely.
small, but if you get them done, that's the important part, is actually coming up with goals that are achievable and manageable.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. Getting it right, getting it done than getting it right. Like,
Mhm.
just
Right.
get things done rather than being overwhelmed with, oh, is this perfect? Is this the best?
Mhm.
Because we are in an ever changing world. It is a new kind of very palpable kind of an energy, right? Even if
Mhm.
you are on LinkedIn for a while, there is overwhelm. I'm not going to deny it. All our
Yes.
relaunchers have accepted it. But what has helped them is that, yeah, cut it, make it down into small steps, and then it's really like taking those stairs and looking at that goal right there. You have that goal in front of you, and what
Mhm.
do you do to achieve it? Yeah.
Mhm.
That is great. We have a question, Heidi.
Mhm.
I have a
Sure.
couple of questions,
Mhm.
that I've collected, but let's address Katie's question.
Okay.
So she says, my resume is 2 pages of detailed achievements in investment banking in
Okay.
Manhattan. I am now in SC with 3 children, two with special needs. So it's a two-part question.
Mhm.
One, how do I break from my job history, which is impressive, to
Mhm.
making room on resume for the transferable skills from my break?
Mhm.
And two, need to move from wanting a job being on call 24/7 to having job with less hours and
Mhm.
possibly less intellectual challenge.
Mhm. Okay. In terms of how to talk about the transferable skills, oh, this is great. I have it right
Yeah.
on the screen. Hi, Katie. Um, I think, first of all, congratulations on being able to juggle all that you do. I know how difficult that is, and how hard it is to think about making that transition back to the workplace. Um, I think it first of all, the it depends on how far back that experience goes. So if the experience in banking is, for example, 20 years worth, then and the older jobs aren't really saying anything, or aren't including a lot that's different from what the newer jobs include, you can start to edit down some of the older achievements. If there's, think about what is most related to what you think you want to do next, and and kind of cutting out some of the duplication. So if the older accomplishments are things that you've done, that you've also done more recently, then you can start to think about, okay, well, here's an example of how I did this in the job 5 years ago, as opposed to, and I also did that in the job 20 years ago. Then you could probably start editing down.
Hmm.
And when you think about what you're going to do next, I think it's important to think about what skills you want to use. What skills from your old role in investment banking would you like to take with you to what you're doing next? And what kinds of things would you like to have less of? So thinking again about the story, how does the past connect to the present, and how will that lead to the future? So, thinking about what it is that you'd like to do next, and what combination of skills and achievements from those old jobs um, are relevant, and then how you can use the skills that you've gained through this time of navigating the world of getting services for kids with special needs and kids without special needs. What kinds of things that you've learned there do you want to take with you to what's
Yeah.
next?
And I want to go back and I want to do a callback to what you said, Heidi, earlier about augment. I love that
Right.
word.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because it is really augmenting, because what the experience, Katie, that you had is valuable,
Mhm.
and what you want going forward. So get the best of both the worlds, right?
Right.
And be strategic in the experiences you choose from, and augmenting. I think that is my favorite word, because yeah, because you augment, you don't know it, but you're augmenting all the time. It's really because evolution, you are evolving and you're going forward with augmenting.
Right.
Don't you agree, Eddie?
Yes, definitely. That it's past, present, future. That it's not just past. Often people, you will make the mistake of just reporting in their resume, just listing.
Right,
And what you want to do again is show that through line, show what that narrative is, what is your story. And then once you kind of have a sense of what your story is, hopefully you'll be able to kind of weave those different elements in to help an employer think about what you're capable of doing next.
right.
And and kind of having an idea of what that job will entail, the job that's a little bit less demanding, less 24/7. What would that look like? What kinds of things would you like to take with you? What kinds of things would you like to leave behind?
Yeah. And I think I posted a question, because that is again a common question, which is a follow up, really, which is relevant to what Katie was saying. Tailoring your resume, uh,
Hmm.
right, to highlight your most relevant experiences and skills. I think we touched upon this, but this is something that also came up in the most in your most popular podcast, which you did, Heidi. Your podcast is so popular with our
Oh,
relaunchers,
thank
and
you.
especially that bit about tailoring your resume that you mentioned. So you were also talking about tailoring your resume differently for a career reentry program and a direct
Right,
hire program.
right.
Do you want to add something to it?
Well, I think the key word there is relevant. What is it
Mm,
relevant to? So if you're thinking, if you're looking to make a change, if you're applying to a relaunch, an on-ramps kind of program, what are the relevance? What skills are important, are relevant in that role? And then thinking about how you match up there. Chat GPT and AI can be fun. I think I talked about that in the podcast. That can be a fun way to kind of pull out skills and experience. So you can, if you're looking at a job description, you can put that experience into that description into chat gpt and say and then put your resume in without identifying information and say, how do my skills match the skills in this role? Or you could put in the description and say, what are the key skills that are that are essential to this role? So thinking about how you match up, not with a checklist, but how do you match up in terms of what that job entails and what you have.
mm, right, right, absolutely. And also a quick, a short follow up to this is the applicant tracking system. Like, everybody has everything to say about it and how it works. And I don't know if anybody knows how it works, but yeah, everybody is trying to.
A mystery, right? Well,
Yeah, but is it true that when you're tailoring your resume to the job description that you want to apply for, have those words in your resume too? Like, do you agree with that school of thought?
I think it can be useful. I wouldn't do it in such a way that you're being super obvious about it so that you're just looking, putting them side by side and saying, okay, here are the 10 words they say. I have to make sure those 10 words are in my
Right.
resume. You don't necessarily want to do it that way. But I think they do they'll scan for certain keywords. And also, if you're, if you have your resume posted online, or if for your LinkedIn profile, if a recruiter is looking for someone, it would be nice if you showed up in their search. So you're not just depending on the jobs that you're applying for, but maybe possibly being recruited by someone, having someone reach out to you. So the more that you can kind of match up your keywords, or include keywords that are important in that field, then you increase your chances of getting
Mm.
found by somebody. So again, not just doing a checklist, but really doing your research into what's important, not just in that particular job, but in that industry, in
Yeah.
companies that are in that space.
Right, right, right. Great, Heidi. We are over 6 minutes. We
It goes
said we
by
would do
fast.
40 minutes. Yeah,
I
but
love
I
it.
want to end with this, with this question and comment. Really,
Mhm.
how this we all know that the resume, I mean, the job search, it can be a long journey. It can be hard. It can be tiring. How, and you every time, we've heard these, that you send out resumes to so many companies and you don't hear back, and then there is a demotivation that sets in. How do you keep yourself motivated through this process?
It's hard. It's a very difficult process, and it's natural to get discouraged. I think putting that pressure on a piece of paper, on a resume, is that's a lot of pressure to put on one document. So
Mm,
if you're not hearing, it may not be the resume. Your resume might be fine. It may be numbers. And so only applying online, only responding to ads may
mm,
not be an approach that's ideal. I really like a quality over quantity approach, so that you're really focusing on companies and roles that interest you, that you're following companies on LinkedIn. So even if they don't have something right now, you might learn about it because you see on your feed that they're expanding a particular department, or they're opening a new office or something like that. Trying, seeing if there's a way to network into a company that you're interested in, finding people through your network who maybe have some connection there, not asking for a job, but reaching out and just saying, I'd love to learn more about what you do. I'd love to learn more about your experience at this company. So thinking about other activities that you can be doing that may not get you the job immediately, but will help you build your network and possibly help you gain more insight into the companies that really interest you.
yeah.
So not just putting all the pressure on your resume, um, doing more, in the way of networking and researching
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
augment that. Using that word again.
Yeah, I love that advice. Quality over quantity. It might work for some people because they just want their confidence up, and they just, I know some people who want to just apply everywhere and see, and they're able to take that pressure.
Right.
But there is a significant group of people who are not able to take that pressure, and they do get just bogged down that nothing is
Mhm.
working out. And it goes in absolutes, that nothing is happening and I will never get back, and it just goes in that zone.
Right.
um so it is really quality over quantity, right?
Right.
That is great. Any closing thoughts that you want to share?
I do think it's important to take care of yourself during the job search. if there are job search support groups out there. You might have other friends or colleagues who are in the job search process. Having people to commiserate so that you're not alone,
Yeah.
and building rewards into the process so that you don't feel like you have to spend all your time looking for a job. Saying, okay, once I do these tasks, then I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to have some ice cream, or just some. It doesn't have to be a big reward, but finding ways to take care of yourself, to reward yourself, to build motivators into the process so that it's not all drudgery. So that that you're still being kind to yourself and giving yourself a break when you need to.
So important, so important.
Mhm.
Yes, we could not end this on a much more positive note. And to everybody who's listening, Heidi and I were talking about taking care of yourself and putting yourself up just before the live. And
Mhm.
it's nice that it's like a full circle. We are closing
Mhm.
up on that because really nothing is more important than your mental health and your self care. So yes, go out there and get back with all that grit and determination, but also take breaks and prioritize self-care because it
Yes.
does take a toll. And also community, we have seen the power of community in our return to work forum. It is
Mhm.
such a vibrant community, and there are good days, there are bad days, and but you have people to share with, right?
Right.
And
You're not alone. Mhm.
yeah, you're not alone. That is a great it just feels great that we are not alone, and there are people who are in the same boat, and it's not why me.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you,
Thank
Heidi. Thank you so
you.
much. This was it was short, but it was such an in-depth. I thought we covered a lot. We talked
Mhm.
about tailoring your resume. We talked about relevant skills, quality over quantity, and definitely about augmenting.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. So I think my closing thought is that your skills are valuable, and your skills when you were working in the paid workforce during the career break is
Mhm.
valuable. You just have to tell your story and put things
Yes.
together, right?
Just because you're not paid for something doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile. That some of the most important skills are things that you learn, in unexpected places. So
Exactly.
don't undervalue them.
Yeah, don't undervalue them. Thank you, Heidi.
Well, thank
And
you. Thank you, relaunchers. It was really nice to be here. Thank you.
yes, and we will meet you next Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific, with our new Facebook Live. See you then. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.